The clock ticks, a silent, relentless march against the finite moments of our lives. We scramble for productivity hacks, for 5-minute devotionals, for any edge in a world that demands constant visible output. We chase metrics, striving to maximize every second. But what if the ultimate productivity secret wasn't found in a new app or a louder hustle, but in a radical, almost unfathomable silence? Imagine a man who spent 20,000 hours in prayer. Imagine another 5,000 days of his life in total fasting. These aren't the stats of a recluse or a monk cloistered away from the world. These are the life metrics of Zacharias Tanee Fomum, a man who didn't just pray and fast. He wielded these disciplines with the precision of a surgeon and the dedication of a world-class scientist. He was a force, a paradox, a brilliant academic who knew that true genius lay not in what he could uncover in a lab, but in what he could discover on his knees. Fomum's life presents a profound challenge to our modern sensibilities. We value visible impact, immediate returns, and quantifiable success. Yet Fomum built a global movement, wrote over 100 books, translated into dozens of languages, and influenced thousands of missionaries worldwide, largely from a secret place of agonizing prayer and rigorous self-denial. His story isn't just biography, it's a mirror reflecting our own misplaced priorities. Born in Cameroon in 1945, Zacharias Tanee Fomum was destined for intellectual greatness. His mind was a formidable instrument, sharp and incisive. He pursued higher education with a voracious appetite, culminating in a Doctor of Science degree in organic chemistry. He excelled in the hallowed halls of academia, conducting experiments, publishing papers, and pushing the boundaries of scientific understanding. He was a professor at the University of Yaoundé, a respected figure in his field, a man whose intellect could dissect complex molecular structures with ease. Here lies the first profound lesson from Fomum's life: intellectual worship. For Fomum, the pursuit of knowledge was not a divergence from faith, but an extension of it. He believed that the more he understood the intricate workings of creation, the more he stood in awe of the Creator. His scientific mind was not a barrier to spiritual depth, it was a pathway. He demonstrated that faith is not for the intellectually timid, but can be embraced, even amplified, by a rigorous, questioning mind. He integrated his academic pursuits with his spiritual discipline, proving that one does not diminish the other, but rather, they can enrich each other, revealing a God whose wisdom permeates both the microscopic and the macroscopic. He didn't compartmentalize his life, he integrated it, showing that true worship engages every faculty, heart, soul, and mind. But Fomum's brilliance extended far beyond the laboratory. He understood that knowledge without divine power was ultimately hollow. While others sought recognition for their scientific breakthroughs, Fomum sought a deeper connection with the source of all knowledge. This is where his journey takes a turn that baffles and inspires in equal measure. He began to apply the same meticulous precision he used in his scientific research to his spiritual life. He kept meticulous records, not just of chemical reactions, but of his prayer hours and fasting days. This leads us to the second vital lesson: the power of records. Fomum understood a fundamental principle of growth. What is measured, grows. If you want to improve, you must first assess. He didn't just intend to pray for hours, he tracked it. He didn't just plan to fast, he logged every day, every moment of self-denial. This wasn't about legalism, it was about stewardship. It was about treating his spiritual development with the same seriousness and accountability he applied to his scientific experiments. He knew that the unseen battles of the spirit required the same discipline as the visible battles of the lab. This dedication to tracking allowed him to identify patterns, to push past perceived limits, and to build an edifice of spiritual strength, hour by agonizing hour, day by grueling day. It taught him consistency, revealed his weaknesses, and celebrated his breakthroughs. Consider the sheer audacity of it. Thousands of hours dedicated to solitary prayer, thousands of days denying the most basic human need for sustenance. He cataloged the requirements for spiritual explosion. He studied the giants of the faith, men like Charles Finney, John Wesley, and Hudson Taylor. He analyzed their lives like he analyzed chemical compounds. What was the common denominator? What was the active ingredient that turned a normal man into a conduit for divine power? The answer he found was uncomfortable. Total, radical abandonment. He coined the term radical discipleship. For Fomum, this wasn't a poetic phrase, it was a mathematical equation. Income. 100% belonged to God. He and his wife lived on a capped amount, giving everything else, often 90% of their earnings, back into the ministry. Time, every hour was accounted for. Sleep was minimized. Leisure was eliminated. Ambition. The goal was no longer tenure. It was the evangelization of the world. He began to preach this in Cameroon. It was startling. He wasn't offering the health and wealth gospel that was beginning to become popular. He was offering blood, sweat, and tears. He was offering a cross. And yet, young people responded. Students from the university, captivated by the sheer intensity of this professor prophet, began to follow him. They saw a man who didn't just talk about sacrifice, but embodied it. They saw a man who would finish a lecture on organic chemistry, walk out of the university gates, and spend the next 6 hours on his knees in a dusty room, groaning for the salvation of souls. In a world obsessed with gratification, Fomum chose radical sacrifice. This brings us to the third, perhaps most challenging lesson, the law of sacrifice. Fomum's life was a living sermon on the truth that greatness, spiritual or otherwise, is not accidental. It is bought with the currency of time, discipline, and the willingness to say no to countless lesser things. He understood that every yes to God required a no to self, a no to comfort, a no to distraction. His fasting was not merely abstention, it was spiritual warfare. He fasted not just for personal holiness, but for the salvation of souls, for the expansion of God's kingdom, for breakthroughs in seemingly impossible situations. He demonstrated that true intercession often involves an agony that transcends words, a wrestling that manifests in the physical denial of the body. He pushed his body to its limits, not out of masochism, but out of a fierce determination to align himself completely with divine will, believing that certain spiritual victories could only be won through sustained, sacrificial prayer and fasting. This discipline forged within him an unshakable character, a spiritual resilience that allowed him to navigate the immense pressures of leading a global movement. From this furnace of prayer and fasting emerged the Christian Missionary Fellowship International, CMFI, a global movement that would ripple across continents. Fomum didn't build CMFI with flashy marketing campaigns or charismatic stage presence. He built it through the raw, undeniable power that flowed from his secret disciplines. He didn't seek fame, he sought depth, and in seeking depth, the world, in its own way, came to his door. This brings us to our fourth lesson, global impact through local depth. Fomum's life demonstrates that true, lasting influence rarely starts with a massive platform. It begins with profound personal conviction and an unyielding commitment to the inner life. His sphere of influence grew organically, powerfully, because it was rooted in an authentic, deep communion with God. He discipled individuals, one by one, instilling in them the same radical commitment to Christ that characterized his own life. These disciples, saturated in his teachings and example, then carried the message to their own communities and eventually to nations around the world. The impact wasn't superficial, it was transformative, replicating his own DNA of sacrifice and devotion in countless others. His books, over 100 titles strong, weren't written for profit or bestseller lists. They were poured out of the same wellspring of prayer and experience, distillations of his life's profound journey. These books, translated into dozens of languages, are testaments to the fact that profound truth, expressed with sincerity and born of struggle, needs no elaborate marketing machine. They were simply the overflow of a life lived fully in God's presence. They spoke with an authority that resonated deeply because they came from a man who had not merely read about God, but had walked with him, wrestled with him, and yielded everything to him. Consider the sheer volume of his output: a DSc in chemistry, a university professorship, the founding and leadership of a global missionary movement, and over 100 books. This wasn't supernatural ability granted to a select few. It was supernatural productivity, earned through diligent stewardship of every moment, every mental faculty, and every spiritual discipline. Fomum understood that his intellectual gifts were to be offered in service, not as an end in themselves. He proved that the academic and the ascetic could coexist, even flourish, within the same individual, each fueling the other towards a greater purpose. His influence was not just felt by his direct followers. His life became a point of reference for countless others who sought a deeper walk with God. He embodied a truth that many only preached, that radical discipleship is not just possible, but essential. He was living proof that a life fully surrendered to God could achieve exponentially more than a life driven by human ambition or conventional wisdom. Fomum's life was not without its critics, its misunderstandings. Such extreme devotion often invites scrutiny, even accusations of fanaticism. But Fomum remained steadfast, unyielding in his convictions, because his convictions were forged in the crucible of divine encounter, not human opinion. He walked a path few dared to tread, a path paved with agonizing prayer, relentless fasting, and unwavering obedience. His physical body eventually yielded to the immense strain of such a life. Zacharias Tanee Fomum passed away in the year 2009, but he didn't merely die, he finished a marathon. He crossed the finish line of a life lived with absolute, uncompromising devotion. He had poured himself out completely, leaving nothing in reserve. His legacy is not just a collection of books or a global movement. It is a question, an urgent challenge posed to each of us. What could you accomplish if you gave God everything? What spiritual breakthroughs are waiting just beyond your current comfort zone? What untapped potential lies dormant, waiting to be awakened by radical sacrifice and unyielding discipline? Zacharias Tanee Fomum's life forces us to confront the superficiality of our own spiritual practices. In a world that prizes convenience, he championed consecration. In an era of instant gratification, he modeled enduring discipline. His life is a stark reminder that true power, true impact, and true spiritual growth are not found in the easy answers or the popular trends. They are found in the secret place, in the agonizing hours of prayer, in the self-denying days of fasting, in the meticulous stewardship of time and talent. He was a scientist who dissected the physical world, and a saint who plumbed the depths of the spiritual. He was a man who understood that the greatest discoveries are made not with a microscope, but on one's knees. His final regret, if he had one, would likely be that he didn't give even more. His life is not just a story to be admired, but a blueprint for a life lived with radical abandon for God. It's a call to reevaluate what truly matters, to embrace the hidden disciplines, and to discover the supernatural productivity that flows from absolute surrender. We learn the following from his life. The theology of hiddenness. Fomum was deeply comfortable being unseen. Much of his greatest labor happened where no applause could follow. He understood a kingdom principle many ignore. God often hides his most powerful work before he reveals it. While the world rewards visibility, Fomum prioritized obscurity. His prayer hours were not live-streamed. His fasting was not branded. His sacrifices were not advertised. He believed public authority flows from private faithfulness. Application. Modern believers must relearn how to work without witnesses. Pray when no one will ever know. Serve where no platform exists. Obey God in ways that produce no immediate validation. Ask yourself, if God removed every audience, would my devotion remain? Hidden obedience is often the gateway to enduring authority. 2. Delayed fruit is still fruit. Fomum labored for years before global impact became visible. His early seasons were marked by intensity, not results. He understood that spiritual work matures underground before it surfaces. Many today abandon disciplines because results are not immediate. Fomum stayed the course because he trusted divine timing more than emotional feedback. Application. Stay faithful even when growth feels slow. Influence seems small. Your prayers feel unanswered. Not every seed sprouts quickly. Some are designed for forests, not flowers. Patience is not passivity. It is confidence in God's timetable. 3. Depth produces longevity. Fomum did not burn bright and vanish. His influence endured because it was rooted in depth, not novelty. He did not rely on charisma, trends, or emotional hype. He relied on spiritual weight. Many ministries collapse because they are built on excitement rather than substance. Fomum built a movement that survived him because it was anchored in convictions, not personality. Application. Choose sustainability over sensation. Read deeply, not just widely. Build convictions, not impressions. Form habits, not moods. If your faith cannot survive boredom, pressure, or suffering, it is not yet deep enough. 4. Spiritual authority is costly. Fomum did not command influence cheaply. His authority was forged through suffering, self-denial, and obedience. He understood that authority is not claimed, it is conferred by God in response to surrender. People trusted him not because he spoke loudly, but because his life carried weight. Application. If you desire spiritual authority, embrace discipline. Accept inconvenience. Stop negotiating obedience. Authority flows from alignment, not ambition. God entrusts power to those who will not misuse it. 5. Conviction attracts, compromise repels. Fomum's message was demanding, and yet people followed. Why? Because clarity is magnetic. He did not dilute truth to gain followers. He believed that people hunger for seriousness when it is authentic. Watered-down messages attract crowds, but not disciples. Application. Stop assuming people need less truth to stay. Speak clearly. Live consistently. Refuse half-hearted devotion. Those who are meant to walk with you will recognize conviction when they see it. 6. You can be brilliant and broken before God. Lesson. Fomum never trusted intellect alone. Despite his academic brilliance, he humbled himself deeply before God. He proved that intelligence does not exempt one from dependence. He knew that brilliance without brokenness produces pride, but brilliance surrendered produces power. Application. If you are gifted, stay teachable. Stay repentant. Stay dependent. Let God wound your pride before He uses your gifts. 7. Systems multiply impact. Fomum did not merely inspire individuals, he built systems of discipleship. Training, mentoring, literature, and accountability structures ensured that his vision outlived him. Spiritual passion without structure fades. Structure preserves fire. Application. If you want lasting impact, document what God teaches you. Train others intentionally. Build processes, not just moments. Revival without discipleship becomes memory. Discipleship turns fire into legacy. 8. Finish strong, not just fast. Fomum's life reminds us that Christianity is not a sprint. He finished, emptied, not exhausted, having deliberately poured out everything God gave him. He lived with the end in view. Application. Ask yourself regularly, how do I want to finish? What habits am I building now that will define my ending? Daily obedience shapes eternal outcomes. Zacharias Tanee Fomum does not merely inspire admiration, he demands evaluation. His life asks uncomfortable questions. What have we replaced discipline with? What have we sacrificed for convenience? What could God trust us with if we truly surrendered? His legacy reminds us that the deepest work of God still happens in silence, and the most powerful lives are those fully yielded. Not everyone is called to live exactly as he did, but everyone is called to surrender as fully as he did. And that is the lesson that refuses to let us stay comfortable.